Bonneville Tribes History Archaeology Program Manager. And the request for the district meeting was that we bring some information that discusses how the National Historic Preservation Act invokes in public participation. So the National Historic Preservation Act came out in 1966. It deals with the topic of preserving historic places in the United States for the public. Historic places consist by law mostly as places that are archaeological sites, either prehistoric or historic, standing structures like old buildings, and then places that have traditional value. And in particular, am I done?
That's your feedback. No.
And particularly, there's an emphasis on Native Americans and preserving their traditional areas and places. So the law then has clause after clause after clause after clause after clause, and it doesn't really talk about public participation again, except for where it's excluded, as in not divulging the location of sensitive places. But it does have a bunch of implementing regulations, and the one that deals most with the topics that we're here to talk about today is Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, which says that before you start an undertaking, which is anything that uses federal funds, needs a federal license, has a federal permit, that you have to consider the impact of that undertaking on these historic sources, any of those that I just mentioned. So how it involves the public, and unlike Cheryl who left, I'm not going to say this is simple. Actually, this is a really complex set of laws and rules, and it's kind of hard to explain them all. But the most important thing they say is that the regulations provide specific opportunity for public comment in several ways. And the first one is that the views of the public are essential to inform federal decision makers in the Section 106 process. And they expect that that is going to be done by seeking and considering the views of the public in a manner that reflects the nature and the complexity of the undertaking and its effect on these historic places. It doesn't actually specify exactly how that would be done through the National Historic Preservation Act or Section 106, but it does go on to talk about there needs to be provisions of notices and information, which does coincide with what the environmental specialist was saying. The BIA, when they do things, federal things, they have to put those notices out. They have to provide for the public information. And it says the agency official, which is the federal agent responsible for the fiscal operation of the undertaking, the person who can say, no, you can't spend this money, or yes, you're going to spend this money, except where it's appropriate to protect confidential concerns, you have to provide the public information about the undertaking and its effect on historic properties and seek public comment and input. And members of the public may also provide views on their own initiative to the agency for consideration and decision making. The agency official may use the agency's procedures for public involvement under the National Environmental Policy Act. So right here, what they've done now is they've shifted that responsibility for public involvement off of the National Historic Preservation Act and back onto the National Environmental Policy Act, or the NEPA process. They suggest that that is the way for agencies to gather this public input. They actually have to plan for this involvement. They can't just expect it to happen or post a notice. They actually have to, in consultation with, for historic properties, either the State Historic Preservation Officer or the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, plan to involve the public and then make that plan known. Well, that's actually the crux of it, and it seems like a lot more of this meeting is for question and answer than me just simply here parroting back what the law says, so I would be happy to take any questions you got. Jerry?
Yeah, a few years ago, I'm not sure if Billy or Nancy were here then as council people, but this environmental group from up in the Kettle Falls area, they came down to a district meeting here, and they went to Keller. They tried to get to Inch Lane, but they kept saying they were too busy. They were blocking the meeting. And so, anyway, what they were doing was they were trying to going through Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell to get $42 million for the restoration of the North End. And because we have hunting, fishing, gathering rights up there, and they wanted to recognize all our sacred sites, burial grounds, camping, old camping areas, and so they come down to the presentation. And but what I wanted to know, the two things that I wanted them to do was to recognize a real old place there at White Mountain, where the people a long time ago, and it wasn't only in Chelan, but they went there to get on their vision quest, our members, that they set that aside, and also some of these areas that we do our food gathering, that they know where they are, and that they could maybe keep the cows out of there till we could get to them. Because this is what happens down in all over. The cows get in there, they eat the tops off, let's say Indian carrots, so eat the tops off, then you can't find them, they're gone. And so, but anyway, I'm not sure, I haven't talked to Tim Coleman, it's with Conservation Northwest. I don't know whether you knew about that, but.
It doesn't sound familiar to me at all.
Oh, yeah, you can get it on the internet even.
Tim Coleman?
Tim Coleman, Conservation Northwest. I have his phone number at home if you want me. I can.
Sure.
Yeah.
But didn't they used to be with Forest Service?
Well, Conservation Northwest is looking out for the whole Northwest. They're not just looking out for their little environmental endeavors up here on our, the old North half. And so, I was just wondering if you knew about that, and because to me it's very important. They want to recognize they've got a lot of burial sites up there. And there's also this pit house that Mike Finley and Mark McDougall and Holo, I think, went to visit. It's a huge, looked like was a whole community or city of them, the old pit houses. And some guy was plowing his field and come across all these artifacts and everything, and they found out it was an old pit house site. So, but anyways, I was just wondering if you knew about that, and you could probably, your group could, where you work could look into it, and it was Tim Coleman, And then I have some other places down here in the south, the south half. I talked to Rodney Costin, and well, actually, he contacted me after the dinner rich feast, asked if anybody knew about Badger Mountain. And I talked to him outside. It was kind of hard to talk, there's too many people around and everything. But he was wanting to know history of the Badger Mountain area, the digging areas, and there is a cave down there. It's called the Moses Cave. And
In the Palisades.
It's in the Palisades, and we kind of wanted, Mark McDougall was trying to get the man that owned it up to the chambers and have some kind of an agreement that we would be able to go in there, after his comment. He didn't know what would happen to it when his son took over. And so we did a field trip down there and looked at that, and then Moses Stool. We went there, and
Moses Cable.
Mike went and filmed us up there. Barbara Ducky and I, my brother Ron Freelander, and we talked about this area. And and why, the importance of Moses Steel to be put on the, what do they call that?
Historic preservation?
Yeah, historical preservation, a site, a sacred site. And so Rodney was gonna look into it when he's working in Olympia, but I don't think he ever did.
It's an old prayer site.
Yeah, he changed jobs, so then he was kind of,
Chiefs,
but
people.
those were two
women,
sites,
men.
or two places that I, kind of thought was very important. But that's about all. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, the old Moses Cave, I think was, Eastern, was it Eastern Washington University went in there and they did some digging and they got kicked out. You
Yeah.
probably know where it's at.
Yeah, thank you for your input, and I'll try to follow up on some of those things.
I have a question, it doesn't have to do with the, what she's talking about. Your, vegetarian or whatever she is, plant specialist, is planning an RFP for, to record all the tribal plants, all our plants, in what do you call it there?
In a data system.
In a database,
Yeah,
yes,
in a
yes.
database with
Mhm.
scientific names, the names that we call them by their locations and stuff, and, I noticed in her, plan that some of the things that, she mentioned city in there, in one of the pages, and I don't think there's a city involved, and that should be deleted,
Okay,
and just have her review it, and, possibly if some tribal member that is really computer efficient is hired to do this data, process, this data bank, and, hire tribal members to help. Because we need our tribal members to know some of these sites. On this data thing was going to be sites. Some of these sites are sacred sites and not to be given out to the Yakimas, Spokanes, the people in Canada. It's our way that we don't take other tribes to our bury sites,
right,
or to our digging sites. That's our sites, our people's sites. And so, that's the same way I feel about that data bank. If it's preserved so that other tribes are not knowledgeable of it, or keep it in house.
that's the current plan, so
Okay.
we found out that when people started asking about this for the restoration project, we did not have baseline data, which means we as a program, nor could we provide to the tribe some kind of understanding of what plants were out there, what their distribution was, and what association they were found in. So that's what they spent the first couple of years doing, was gathering that information. And now what they want to do is put it into this database, which is going to be held, what happens to the information is going to be up to the tribe. We're not releasing anything at this time. And they're already starting to do this. If you saw the horse handout, so they're already starting to do these distribution lists, but the database is going to be able to set it up. Hopefully, the plan is, and that's why it's such a sophisticated one as you put it out for an RFP, is when they gather a plant, if they gather a traditional plant, they also note what is around it, what the environment's like, and what other plants are in there. So we'll also be able to understand some kind of associations with both the vegetation and the environment. And then if you have all those things in there, they'll be able to start providing the type of information that people come and ask. Like, I can't find my medicines anymore, where can I find them? And we don't have to go, well, this is where so-and-so gets them. But we would say something more like, well, you can find them in a wet environment on a north slope, up in the hills, or something like that.
Down the drop, next to water.
Yeah.
Also, when I was thinking about this, about the preservation, like history always does, preserves everything for us that they have, and not letting it out, And, I heard of one of our tribal members taking a carload of